Hi, I'm Todd Jones, host of the podcast Pressbox Access. Here's a clip from my interview with Dan Wetzel. Dan tells us what it was like to be in the media room on the night John Chaney threatened to kill John Calipari. February 13th, 1994. It's John Chaney and it's John Calipari. It's UMass and it's Temple. It's Sunday afternoon. It's an Atlantic 10 basketball game. And something happened that day that you said, wait a minute, I think I might...
Well, it's kind of a joke, but yeah.
What happened? What happened
John Chaney tried to kill John Calipari. It was pretty awesome. I was there. I will say, that didn't make me want to be a sports writer. I always joke that story, but I was like, this is exciting. Like, this is great. If this happens every day, we got something to write about.
Yeah, well, let's set the scene on that one because I really do feel like that's a moment that happened. It went viral the way you could go viral in those days. There was no internet for the most part. There was no social media, but that thing became a huge story. I was covering Atlantic 10 basketball at the Cincinnati Post at the time, and I just remember that thing was like out of control. You're at the game for the Daily Collegian, and UMass wins by a point. And John Calipari comes in. Well, actually, Chaney came in first, right, to have his press conference? Is that right? And then he left, and things seemed normal?
So they did the Collegian years later. I can't remember who it. I apologize to whoever did it. They did like an oral history and tried to patch it back together, like forensic science. But as I recall it, I think this is what it was. So Chaney would go right into the press conference, and Calipari was going to go second. But Chaney comes in, and he compliments the team, and it was this great game, and he thought the team UMass is going to be really good, and it was just a really good game. And he was very, very complimentary. John Chaney is a very interesting guy. I loved him. I got to know him, to a degree later on. He even let the Collegian into one of his practices because he even let me come to one of his practices like 6 a.m.
Yeah,
I think he wanted good press in Amherst. I'm not the worst guy in the world,
right.
But I loved him. I loved Chaney, but at the time I didn't know him. But he comes in, he compliments UMass, all this stuff, and at the time Calipari's outside, like getting into it with the refs about some call that he thought wasn't fair in the game,
and he
had won the game. So Chaney leaves.
Right.
Cal comes in, and then someone tells Chaney that Calipari was after the refs after the game. If you ever really listen to it, Chaney makes reference to all of this, and he just loses it and comes back in and just starts, it was just phenomenal. It was just great.
What were you thinking when he's yelling, "I'm going to kill you"?
I mean, I didn't think there'd be a homicide. But if he had gotten his hands on him, so there were two players, Mike Williams and Derek Kellogg, were there also, and they had a little side table. They were sitting there, and Chaney went up and tried to get at Cal, and the players blocked him. Today, he'd probably be fired because I think he put his hand around one of their necks. I mean, it took two college athletes who were like 20 years old and in prime physical condition to hold John Chaney back. Wow. And they did. And but the whole thing goes down and he leaves, and it was just like, what the hell just happened? Like, you couldn't even believe it just happened. And then it was just we got one of the local TV stations to replay it. We're looking at it out in the hallway on like the camera. You could get the camera to replay it, like we're looking into the little camera.
Yeah, like the
Zapruder
film,
we're like,
right?
What the hell? Like, what got said? I mean, you're in there, you got tapes, but you can't hear everything because Chaney's yelling from the back of the room. And it was a different era of time, so that like there was no breaking in with the news. So until the 6 o'clock news in like Springfield or whoever was at the game, Springfield Mass TV or whatever, there would be no video that would be out there. There was literally like hours of like nothing. And then until Sports Center went crazy with it at like 11 o'clock, nowadays they break into whatever and say, this just happened. That, you could be watching whatever was going on, they would have cut to it, but there was none of that. So it was wild. And then they had a return game down in Philly, which was great. But anyway, it was
like a week. It was like a
couple
later,
weeks later. It was awesome. I mean, all those A-10 teams were great back then. You had Chaney and Mike Jarvis and Al Skinner and Prosser and Gillen, and just so many good characters in the league, and they were all
Right.
And Calipari, he loved it. He got more attention out of it. Him and Chaney became friends. Like I said, Chaney just loses his mind every once in a while, but God bless that guy.